rural areas to say, stand together on this and fight it.
And it isn't, and again, I'm speaking for myself, but to me, it isn't just planning and zoning. It isn't just sediment control. It isn't just erosion. This war on rural Maryland is taxes. I mean, the alcohol tax is a prime example of something that, you can live in a subdivision here in Chestertown or in Centerville or wherever, and you don't have, you don't directly deal with a farming regulation. But, the alcohol regulation, boy, that was meant to reward the heavily Democratic areas where the Democrat votes are, and to punish those who didn't. We're all paying it, but only certain counties are getting large amounts of money out of that. So, oh, we got to pass this. It's for the children, but not the children who don't live in the cities.
And it was outright theft. This was theft from the children. They sent children who were handicapped in wheelchairs and with disabilities down to Annapolis, and they had a little catchphrase, "A dime a drink with a link." So we're going to link it to, if you vote a dime a drink on this new tax. And then they decided, you know what, there's so much money here, we don't have to give money to the children with special needs. We don't have to give it to mental health. So mental health, I believe, got nothing, and a small portion goes to the children with the special needs. But the Montgomery County decided we're going to take $9 million and we're going to give $10 million to Prince George's County. Baltimore City ends up with $7 million, was it? $9 million also. And then they ended up with $7 million for one of the other counties. And then they gave pittances around the rest of the state. And this money's going to go for school construction. And you know where the school construction is going to go. So this was an absolutely pitiful act to do this at the expense of children who had special needs. And the money should have went, if it was going to be taken, for what it was projected for. And they didn't even wait to rob the fund this time. They just decided, don't even make the fund, let's just rob the money right out. It was blatant. It was absolutely unconscionable. It is the most unconscionable thing I've seen since I've been in government.
And of course, that's very similar to the Bay Bridge and the toll increases going to pay for the inter-county connector.
Yeah. Because you're going, if you live in Baltimore City and you want to go to the beach, you need to pay more in tolls. And okay, so we got them to acquiesce a little teeny tiny bit, which Mike predicted that they would do with the commuters, so that they're not going to raise the commuter rate until July of 2013, I think it is. But, if you want to go to Ocean City, if you want to spend any time at all on the Eastern Shore, you now, starting Tuesday, you will, instead of paying $2.50, you will now spend $4. Why? Well, because, we have to pay for things. Well, great, but now you're messing with the businesses on the Eastern Shore.
Often the taxes that they say they need to raise, well, one of the interesting, the ironies I just saw where they want to do the flush tax now, they want to move it up from, $30 a year to $90. They want to increase it by 3 times the amount. Well, think back a couple years ago. The government went and told us, wait a minute, you got to do these low flush toilets. So you only use 2 gallons, I believe it is. And instead of flushing them once now, you got to flush them 2 or 3 times to work. Well, now they're charging you per flush. So I have to think, the government, gets you on the one end, and then on the other end, they're going to hit you with a tax for the very act that they're the ones who imposed and required.
Sounds like a Dave Barry column. He did a whole column on this years ago.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Complaining about the low flush toilets, that with the regulations with him having to put in a low flush toilet, he now realized that he had to flush it 3 times to get everything to go down there.
But I bet he didn't even anticipate that they were going to turn around now and tax you per flush, which is now what they're doing.
I don't think he got that far.
Yeah.
But,
it's just, they are attacking rural Maryland at every single front, and I gotta say, if people don't stand up, session starts January 11th, I think, and Mike will be here to let you know what's going on. I'll be around to let you know what's going on. You'll hear from other legislators, I'm sure, what's going on. But folks, you gotta get involved. You gotta send those emails. You gotta make those phone calls. You gotta hold your legislators accountable, and not just the 36 districts.
This has more to do with our way of life in the rural areas than just whether or not there is growth and what kind of growth there is. Our children, or your children who are looking to find jobs, will not find them on the Eastern Shore. The Eastern Shore's traditional jobs in agriculture, on the bay, they're going to go away because they're now seen as a threat. Obviously, if you make money from the land, you somehow are, destroying the earth to do so and stealing the resources of others. That's the attitude. They don't look at the grocery store and understand that a farmer had to grow those products, and the farmer had to make the land and the soil productive, and use chemicals to do that, to create the crops that they would then sell. And so they don't understand that, and they're trying to destroy the very livelihoods that we have here.
And all of this kind of ties in, we kind of shift gears without a clutch, because this kind of ties in. We had Jay Falstad from Queen Anne's County, Queen Anne's Conservation Association in earlier today, and one of the things that we got into, because we were talking about the revisions to the APFO, which is something that I'm still kind of coming to grips with, but it turned a little bit into the talk about economic development and the plan that's within the county, and part of this being pushed by the state to have the economic development in the towns and was just kind of wondering out loud, where is the push to get the businesses to locate into the towns and get all the vacant businesses within the towns, and I'm kind of thinking to myself, if you have the state that's kind of pushing where the development is, doesn't that kind of affect the marketplace of where you would have businesses want to develop? If it's not where, if the marketplace isn't driving the decision, then doesn't that don't you run into problems with development?
You destroy real estate property values. If you're not inside the town limits and you have commercial property, but yet everything that the state is doing is to tell you that you may not put your commercial business in those areas, and that you have now all of a sudden you have property that is no longer worth what it used to be. The state, that Constitution we gave you earlier, prohibits taking without being compensated for it. And so I sat right next to the governor at a meeting we had, and we were there for 2 hours, and I asked him, how are you going to compensate for the billions and billions of dollars of property that you're going to be taking from people on the Eastern Shore? And his response was a very serious response. He went right into the political mode. Well, we look at it as though we're looking to the future of protecting our children in our bay. And I said, anybody can throw out those political rhetoric, but the seriousness of the situation is that you are taking the value of farmers who for generations have worked that land and maybe set aside a little piece to set up a commercial venture, and they can no longer do that because of the new policies, and they're not even going to the legislature, who is supposed to set policy. These are coming from the governor, who says, find me a way to avoid going through the constitutionally set up mechanism of going through the legislature, and let me just do it by edict or executive order.